And I went, oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Which part am I playing? He goes, oh, you're the lead. And I went, you didn't give me any heads up? I could have been researching this. Present Mike was very difficult for me. In season 2, it gave me laryngitis. When I started, it was just us and a couple of other studios making anime, you know? But at the same time, he still maintains that jerky attitude. I love it.
You're watching convention coverage.
Yeah, go ahead, sit up.
If you could have one of Usopp's weapons or tools in your real life, what would it be?
Oh, it's gotta be the Kabuto there.
The freestanding one. I saw a dude build that on YouTube. It's a German guy, funny enough, and that thing's shoots like a bullet, you know. Yeah. And also he said, you know, it's a very good for a cartoon weapon, you know. It's like it stabs on one end, and you stick it in the ground and pull it back, and he was like puncturing things with it. I'd love to have that.
That would be cool.
Yeah, and then some of those plant things to throw at him too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like the plant bombshell cocoon.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Just plaster his scary face onto a wall.
That would be amazing.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you can pick a devil fruit for Usopp, what would it be?
I would like a devil fruit that would give me the power to mentally slap people in the back of the head, and they would know why they were slapped in the back of the head, and they would correct their behavior immediately. And I would save the world just by driving around Dallas. Slap, 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 slap. And they'd be going, oh, why am I such a... Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's your favorite arc in One Piece?
It's got to be Water 7, because that's when Usopp had the most...
just beat that part.
Yeah.
And I'm almost there.
Well, I'm going to spoil it for you then, because you asked what my favorite part is. Maybe I shouldn't. Should I tell her about the money being stolen?
No, I know that part.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So when Usopp's money is stolen and he's angry and humiliated and just tears are running down his face and snot coming out of his nose. And while I was recording it, I actually had tears going down my face. And that had never happened to me. And I've been acting since 1979 on stage and done hundreds of plays. But that character in that moment moved me more than any other character.
I know. I was sad that Usopp left. I said, no, don't go.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
What would you say is Captain Usopp's greatest adventure?
Fighting Luffy. That was his greatest adventure. And it showed him how amazing he is, that he stood so long against one of the toughest, maybe the toughest character in all of One Piece. I was sitting there thinking, could any other character stand up that long against Luffy? And he has no powers, just strategy and psychology.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A show I started earlier this year, like May, was Assassination Classroom.
Oh, it's my favorite voice I've done.
And I binged the whole thing in 2 days. It was I'd never seen it before, and I loved it so much. And so I just wanted to know what was it like working on that show?
That was really cool. I went to work that day thinking I was doing One Piece or something, because Joel McDonald was directing it, and he was directing One Piece as well at the time. And I show up and I went, wait a minute, this is not One Piece, what is this? And he said, oh, no, this is a new show, Assassination Classroom. And I went, oh, yeah, I've heard of that. Which part am I playing? He goes, oh, you're the lead. And I went, you didn't give me any heads up? I could have been researching this. But as soon as I did 5 lines, I was like, oh, I totally get this guy. I'm in, you know? And he became my favorite voice I've done. If you guys want to introduce other people who don't watch anime into anime, that's a good show to introduce to them. It's 2 seasons long, and it's very succinct. It has a definite ending, and it's not a big commitment, but they will love it, and they will cry.
Yeah.
Right?
I love your Koro voice a lot. So
First you take the planet Earth round in blue and green.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
What was your favorite part of Assassination Classroom, the voice Koro Sensei in?
The song. That really was my favorite part. I was like, I get to sing as Koro Sensei? That's awesome.
That was great. Honestly.
Yeah. I also like when somebody tried to kill him while he was talking to somebody during that trip, and he grabs it with the Kleenex and he goes, oh dear, someone tried to put a sliver of bone in my om-nom. That could have turned out ugly.
What was your favorite saga in Dragon Ball to voice Krillin in?
The Android Saga. And the reason, I know it was early in, but Do you remember the scene where he's got the device that can shut down the androids?
Yeah.
And it was still early for me playing Krillin. And also, it's a weird thing when you go from the stage to being in a booth and you're trying to match mouth flaps on the screen, right? So it was the first scene I had that had a lot of dialogue that was in his head. So I could act it any way I wanted. I didn't have to match a mouth flap. And he's talking about how he's just conflicted because he's got these feelings for her and all these things. And I was like, it clicked with me. I was like, oh, I get it. You're a sucker. A sucker for love. I totally relate to you, brother. Now I know how to play you. So that's why it's my favorite scene.
That's dope. My favorite saga is the Frieza saga.
Yeah, that's a good one, too. Except for the fact that back then, we were still recording on reel-to-reel tape. Right, do you guys know what that is, tape? They actually used to record things not digitally. They recorded on actual pieces of tape. And you couldn't pull up a file of a line that we've done before. You know, like now, if I've done a line 5 episodes ago and they refer back to it as a flashback, they just pull the file and put it in place. But back then, they couldn't. And you know where Frieza blows up Krillin? That scene
The classic.
it was flashbacks over and over and over. And I had to do that blood-curdling scream again and again. And Chris was like, well, it's not quite what you did before. Like, oh, God.
Oh boy, here we go again.
Here we go again.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a favorite moment in Dragon Ball that stands out to you?
Well, I mentioned that when I had the device that could shut the androids down. What are the favorite moments? Oh, I love that in Super, Krillin defeated someone that defeated 18. Because we know 18 can mop the floor with Super Saiyan 1, right? So that means Krillin, at least on a skill level, is around Super Saiyan 1, maybe more. That was cool. And also, right after he did it, I don't remember what the line is, like, oh man, this is so great, or whatever, I don't remember. But I looked at the flaps, and I turned to the director, Raleigh, and I said, Raleigh, I've got something for this line. Can I try it? And he goes, yeah, go ahead. And so the lines came up, and I went, man, I am totally Krillin it today. And then he gets hit from behind, and he's knocked out and everything. And it was like totally Krillin moment, you know?
Well, thank you.
Thank you. My other favorite moment is when he asked Goku to punch him as hard as he can. That was great.
If you were able to repeat Dragon Ball wishes like Bulma does, what would be your ridiculous wish?
I could be the weight I want to be. Yeah, without effort. That would be nice.
Don't we all?
Yeah, that would be great, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
What vocal techniques do you use to produce Krillin's voice? He has a very different voice from yours in the sense of it's kind of like nasally in a sense.
Yeah, we took over from the Canadian cast back like 25 years ago. It'll be 25 years next year. And when we auditioned, we had to sound like the Canadian cast. And the Canadian Krillin, Terry Clausen, he sounded a lot like the Team 4-Star version. You guys seen that? It's all up here, eh? What's going on, eh? And I got the part because I could mock him the best. But between the time I got cast and the time I started recording, I read the manga. And in the manga, you know when you read comics, you get like a voice in your head for how these characters sound. And to me, the voice I heard sounded like Popeye on helium, you know? And when I went to record the first day, luckily the director said, yeah, he's a good old boy from Texas. That sounds just like Terry Clausen, but I don't like that voice. And I'm like, oh crap, he's going to replace me, right? And I was like, well, I do other voices. And he goes, yeah, I know. I remember in the audition, you did a lot of voices. You know, but Krillin, like, he's like the world's strongest human being. He's a little guy, but he's the world's strongest human being. And I said, well, what about like Popeye on helium? Because that was in my head. And he goes, what would that sound like? I went, I don't know, something like this. Come on, guys, let's go. And he went, yeah, use that. That's good. So that's how I came up with the voice.
Yeah. Was it just something that just came to you in the spurt of the moment?
Yeah, when I was reading it, I was like, he sounds tougher than what Terry Clausen was giving him, you know, and at least from what I wanted to give him and what I was seeing in him, he's a little person, but he's tough, you know, so he's got to have some scrap in there, you know. And I wasn't trying to do Popeye, but it sounded to me like a higher pitched Popeye in my head. But that's not it depends on the character. Like, there's a show called Prison School, and a lot of people accuse me of trying to sound like Smeagol with him. But there's a character named Andre, he's probably about 600 pounds, has a head this big and a face this big, right?
So I figured his esophagus would be very tight. And so he would breathe very heavy because he's a big guy, you know? So that's how I came up with his voice.
And like I tell my students, don't focus on how to do a character except when you see the picture of the character. And just think, how would I sound if I had to talk through that body? And that's usually where I get most of my characters.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much, Krillin.
Thank you very much, Krillin. I appreciate it.
How do you distinguish Krillin between, being a silly character in one moment, but then being a serious character in another moment, or like an angry character? Because obviously there's a difference between, comedic scene with Krillin and then Krillin.
It's got to be, you got to be living in that moment, right? And you got to know why you're saying it. You always ask, as an actor, you say, I am trying to blank, okay? And if it fits in that blank, it usually works. Like, I am trying to hurt, I'm trying to heal, I'm trying to reach, I'm trying to teach, I'm trying to preach. If one of my students wrote on, I have this workbook, and I said, okay, now I'm trying to what with this character? And he wrote angry. You're trying to angry? You can't try to angry. And that's a wrong approach, because when you're angry, there are many emotions that could be there and many motivations that could be there. Like if my daughter was 4 years old and she's trying to cross the street without looking, I might be angry when I say, stop, right? But what my motivation is, save, right? So you might hear anger, you might hear fear, and you hear multi-layers of emotion in there because you're just doing it for a reason. That answer your question?
Yes, I believe so. Thank you so much.
Pleasure meeting you.
Can Krillin fry an egg on his head?
He can if he lives in Texas. Oh my God, it's so freaking hot this year.
Can he do it if he powers up enough?
He could probably do that, yeah.
Okay.
I think maybe even a solar flare might do it.
Beautiful. Can Hughes fry an egg on his head?
Can what?
Can Hughes fry an egg on his head?
No. Well, he could fry an egg for his daughter for breakfast, but that's about it.
Because he's not an alchemist.
He's not an alchemist at all.
My
But he
curiosity.
might get, hey, Roy, could you please fry this egg for me?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Thank you so much. My curiosity has been satiated and my life is now complete.
Thank you. I feel honored and a bit confused.
How did you create the voice for Joker in Fire Force?
Well, these days we get to hear the Japanese seiyus first, so I just listened to what he was doing and tried to do something that was similar to it. And it's not completely different than other characters I've done. I mean, I played Bardock, and it's sort of in his range, just a little more smarmy, Yeah, and evil. Well, not evil. He's not really evil. He just sounds like he's evil. Yeah. But that was really fun, especially in season 2 when he just went frickin' nuts. Yeah. Well, and thank you for watching it, man.
Thank you.
I was wondering, how is it voicing Lupin? Because I like the voice that you do.
Oh, it was fun. And I was living in Los Angeles, and I was flying back and forth to Texas to record Dragon Ball Z. Mm-hmm. And then I set up a thing with Score Entertainment. They make the Dragon Ball Z card game back then, where I drove around this Dragon Ball Z Hummer all across the country. And I would play kids the game, the card game. And if they could beat me, they won a prize, which was real easy at first. But by the end of that driving, I was so good at that game, I had to cheat against myself so people could win every now and then. But I got a call on the trip from Chris Sabat, and he goes, where are you going to move back to LA, or are you going to move back to Texas after you drive? And I said, I haven't decided. He goes, well, if you move back to Texas, I've got a part for you that I think you're perfect for. And what is it? He told me it was Lupin the Third, and I looked it up, and I went, oh, that sounds cool. So I moved back to Texas, and I did one of the movies. We had, I think, 9 or 10 of the movies. And he said, you seem to have a really good hold on this character. Have you ever directed before? And I said, well, at that point, I'd only directed theater. He goes, oh, well, you can handle this. Would you be interested in directing the rest of the movies? Because we have a lot more coming. And I went, yeah. So I got to play Lupin and direct all but the first one. And it was an amazing experience, and I really learned a lot about directing and acting by doing that. Because when you direct yourself, you have the luxury, especially if you're playing one of the leads, right, I would just go in and do a real quick scratch track of my Lupin lines, so the other actors would have something to play off of, and then I would go back and re-record Lupin's lines playing off of them. So the vocal chemistry was really tight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I go to community college to be an actor, and some of my teachers have conflicting opinions whether acting can be therapy or non-therapeutic. What is your opinion on that?
I think generally, because I don't think anything is absolute when it comes to people's psychology, but I think generally it is therapeutic. I would teach a class. I still teach, but not as much as I used to. But when I had my own studio, I taught an advanced class, and one of the exercises I created was called Dante's Inferno. And what I did was I asked everyone in the room what their worst fear was, and then would set them up in groups, and they would take turns coming up with a scene that would be the worst scenario for someone with that fear. So they had to face their fears. And I think as an actor, it's very important to face your fears, because you don't know what character you're going to play. And if you play a character who has faced that fear and you have not, it's not going to be a genuine performance, right? And I have seen people become more confident after they have faced these fears. One guy, and this is another thing, if some students will say, do you think I have what it takes to make it? And I say, I have no idea. Because I've had, one of my students had a lot of learning disabilities, but he took all the classes, and then I gave my studio to the students, the advanced students, on Wednesdays to do whatever they wanted. So they were doing improv exercises and plays and movies and just whatever they wanted to do. And I just stayed out of their way, and they just showed me the results. But I saw this guy go from having very difficult time communicating to becoming pretty good to being amazing to actually being nominated for awards now in the business. And I'm not going to mention his name, but it was amazing to watch his journey. So I do think it can be therapeutic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Which experiences did you have while voice acting that most affected how you direct others later in your career?
Well, again, I don't like being told how to say a line. I want a director to direct me and tell me how to get there. So that affected me the most. You know, when I would have directors read line, they called it a line read. And some of them they did nothing but line read. So I would go, how do you want me to say it? How do you want me to say it? How do you want me to say it? And I just give them exactly what they want. So that really affected me. I really want to work with the actors and use their palette. So it's a team effort, you know? It's like, I'm just here to use your ability to get there, right? And I want to use every bit that you're willing to give me as an actor.
What other kinds of changes in the industry have happened over those years?
Well, I remember the first anime I did was in 1902. Thomas Edison had created the first anime. Back then we had to record in a can, an actual can, that captured our voices. What was the question? Sorry, memory lane took me a long way down the path.
You had mentioned the advent of the reels and having to re-record previous lines. And are there any other types of things like that that have changed over the years?
Yeah, it used to be that we recorded with a music stand in there, and we had a paper script. And I miss those days because you were able to write notes, you know, of how you wanted to approach this character, or if you really want to accentuate the importance of this line or whatever, you could circle it. And also, people were always doodling in them, you know? And I have a script from a Dragon Ball Z episode I directed years ago that has all the doodles from all the different actors in it. So that's changed. Now it's on a screen. And also, you know, everything's on digital. What I want for the future is more interface between the screen that you're looking at in the booth. Like, I would love to be able to circle things and take notes on it, you know? And we have that technology. I mean, I would just like to see it implemented in recording studios. It would be nice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So you can only have so much going on in your head at any one given moment. And when you're building a character, you have a lot of stuff to build a character with. You got the visuals, you got a background, you got what's, happened a minute ago, you got what's going to happen, you got what's happening right now, and that's a lot to have in your front brain to say one line. So generally...
You don't have that in your brain when you're doing it.
Yeah.
When you're actually doing it, you're living in the moment. And so all that matters is what's happening right now. That's why I don't like it when directors give line reads, which you don't hear very much these days. But back in the day, they'd be like, say it like this. And it's like, well, it's not going to be good, but all right. Because actors need to be living in that moment. Now, it's kind of difficult to just jump in. Sometimes you got a line that comes in the middle of a scene, and you have to pretend like you've been there the whole time because they cut to it. So it helps to have like an action verb motivation. One word. Like, I want you to say to me, I'm going to the store. Say it.
I'm going to the store.
Okay, now, I want you to teach me and say I'm going to the store. Just teach. Think teach. Go.
I'm going to the store.
Excellent. You're acting now.
Oh, boy.
Now, the thing is, teaching, I'm going to the store. I'm going to the store. You can just, if you think teach, 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 every time you say it, you'll come up with a different read every time because you're in that moment with that motivation, considering everything around you. And that's how you get believable reads, and that's how you get interesting reads, Chris Sabat taught me, when I first started directing 200 years ago, he said, really listen to what the actor is giving you instead of what's in your head, because what's in your head is generally a cliche. What the actor is giving you is something that they're living now. And if it works, go with that. It was the best advice ever. That's the way I direct now. When I was directing, if I had to give a line read, I gave myself 10 points off. And I had to make at least 100, so.
If every role you do is just really in the moment, just doing what the character needs, or if you, where do you find inspiration? Like from fiction or from nonfiction? Or?
No, from people. I really like to study people. And and sometimes I go, oh, that guy's a character. Or sometimes I'm like listening. I was listening to NPR once, and there was a guy on the NPR, he talked just like this. And I went, well, that is a very strange voice. And I just put it in the back file, and I played this character. It was a cat. And I went, oh, that sounds like a cat would talk. So I just took it there and went there. So yeah, people. People are my biggest inspiration. I think people are most people's biggest inspiration, right?
Mm-hmm. Very social animals.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What was your favorite note when you looked at a character on your script? That was like really cool to mention.
No, we're
so
going
I'm like
20 years ago. Because
Oh,
I think it was
God.
about 20 years ago we switched to digital.
You made me feel old. Okay. Wow. Wow.
Well, next year it'll be 25 years since I've been doing Dragon Ball Z. So, I don't know. Usually my notes were more like reach them, hurt him with these words or whatever,
Yeah.
And they were just really short, like one word things, motivations, That's generally what they were, but I can't remember a specific one.
Oh,
I know
okay.
I drew a lot of pictures of Krillin and things like that,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Stay hydrated.
You too.
If you could be any kind of mythological creature, what would you be?
An elf.
Nice.
Or a fairy. Yeah. Something that could change shape.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
DC or Marvel?
Oh, that's tough.
Ian gave the wrong answer.
He did. What did he say?
He said Marvel.
Then I say DC. But I really don't. I really like elements of both characters, and it also depends. For me, it depends on who's drawing it and who's writing it. Because any good writer can take any character and make it worth reading. I've read some great Spider-Man stories, and I've read some great Swamp Thing stories, and I've read crappy versions of both. So that's my answer. And it's the right one. I don't care what you say. Okay.
Are there any really cool, interesting, or exciting stories that you've had while recording?
First of all, wait. How many questions is this for you?
This is my third.
All right, come up here. You're a moderator now. Come on up. And you've asked a lot of questions too. You get on this side.
Well, I was asking if there are any like really cool, exciting, or interesting stories from your many years of voice acting, like while you were recording.
No. Any interesting? You know what? It's so weird because when people ask us questions like that, they also ask like what the funniest outtakes and things are. You know, we can't remember them because we do that crap every day. When you're some of the most serious scenes you see between the takes, we are cracking up, we're making jokes and stuff like that because it's embarrassing in a way, right? When you really have to reveal that much pain and everything. So you want to have some kind of relief from it. So you get into the comedy there and then back into it. But every time we record, something funny or interesting is happening. I'm very privileged to work with some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life.
Nice.
Yeah, that one's on.
Oh, sweet. To kind of follow up on that, I'm somebody who has a very hard time like switching gears and forgetting things and letting things go. And so I wonder, I don't know if it's the same with you, but just if you're having just a really bad, as Ian said it, your dog died kind of day, or you're in a really angry mood, and but you got to go in the booth and be someone else, what kind of things do you have to distract you from that mood and get you into the character?
Not a damn thing, because if something's bothering me, when I go into, I savor going into the booth because I can become somebody else, somebody who doesn't have this problem, at least until I'm done with the session, During the so depressing period of time, right? But then about 3 months into it, Funimation gave us home recording equipment so we could record at home. And I was like, oh, thank God, something to escape this drudgery, this horrible situation that we're in.
Yeah.
It was salvation for me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who do you think has better short king energy, Vegeta or Krillin?
It's got to be Vegeta.
Yeah.
Honestly, Krillin doesn't have king energy. He doesn't want to be a king. He just wants to be helpful.
So like
useful. He just wants to be useful.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
But because I kind of feel like Krillin is like, he's pulled way harder than Vegeta. Like, I feel like
Krillin's more of a Mac Daddy than
That's
Vegeta
what I'm saying.
is. Yeah. I mean, he had a girlfriend before anybody, that girl Marin, and then he got married to basically a sophisticated blow-up doll, and
facts.
And then they have a child together, and he names the child Marin, which is the name of his first girlfriend.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
That's how you know Android 18 is not a real woman, because no real woman would have put up with that.
Okay, that's a really good explanation. Thank you.
Do you ever have trouble recalling a voice when you're brought back for a role? Like, say the show was rebooted or something like that?
Yeah, some roles, yeah. I don't have any trouble with Krillin or Usopp, but even then, sometimes we have lines that we remember to get us back into the voice. With Krillin, I just clear my throat, right? And Usopp is that with that hitch, so it's not too far. Like I'll go, Krillin, Usopp, But there are certain characters, like if I had to play them again that I hadn't done in 15 years, I would definitely say, do you have a line? And they usually do. They save a line, a reference line, so that we can hear it. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's easy to do an impression of yourself. So when you hear it, you go, I got it. Okay.
Are you someone that can easily switch between characters, or is there a character that has been really hard for you to forget, and one that's been easy to forget?
Yeah. Present Mike was very difficult for me. Not at first. He was fine, just talking like this, hey? But in season 2, he started screaming, right? And he started screaming a lot, and it gave me laryngitis, and then it turned into pneumonia. And I said to Colleen, who was directing, I said, can I direct myself? And she said, yes, whatever it takes, because they didn't want to lose me in the part. And then 3 lines into his screaming, it was going away again. So I actually had to give up that part. It was the only part I ever had to give up like that.
Oh, no.
And I hated to, So Dave Trosco took over after that, and he does a great job with it. But yeah, that one was a hard one. But generally, I don't know why that was just set wrong in my throat. Like I could do Usopp for 3 hours, you know. I still need to take a break the next day. If I have like a lot of lines for Usopp that takes multiple days, I will tell them, let's do a Tuesday and a Thursday, or a Monday and a Wednesday and a Friday. But I can't do them back to back because generally, I just don't talk the next day. Yeah, it's first of all, the biggest change in the industry is that it's an industry. When I started, it was just us and a couple of other studios making anime, you know. I remember I was on a panel early on in the industry's career that was Eric Vale was with us, right? Voice of Trunks and many Sanji, other characters, right? But there was like 12 voice actors on this panel. And somebody asked, how do you become a voice actor? And Eric said, well, how many people on this panel set out to be voice actors? And none of us raised our hands. And he said, how many of you set out to be actors? And we all did. And he said, that's a very important distinction because you don't know as an actor what you're going to get, right? And there's not a lot of anime roles out there for people. So become an actor first and then audition for everything. But that's changed. Now it's an actual industry, and I've seen people just focus on anime and make careers out of doing that. So that's probably the biggest change I've seen. Chopper. I love Chopper's design. I love his character. I love how sweet he is, and I just love Brina's performance on him.
Do you have a favorite kind of acting? And just curious, how did you get into the world of voice acting?
My favorite character is Koro Sensei. So I do like goofy characters with hearts of gold, you know, and I tend to get them. The way I got in, my dad did impressions of cartoon characters just for fun. And when I was 4, he taught me how to do Donald Duck, which is a whistle, by the way. Hello. You can talk and do Donald Duck at the same time. Oh my God. Sounds like a possessed duck, right? But I once I did that, he was like, oh, here's Mickey Mouse, and here's all these other characters he could do, right? And so as a child, I wanted to be a cartoon voice actor. Oh. But I lived in Texas, and that was an impossibility in Texas. And then I got more serious about it in high school and became basically a theater jock. And I would go to every competition. And after a while, I think my mom started to believing they were handing out trophies to anyone because I always got a trophy when I went, right? Because that's all I lived for, right, was theater. Oh. And then I did a lot of community theater and things like that. And I would act if I wasn't getting paid. Right? And which I didn't for like 13 years. And I didn't care to get paid. I love the art of acting. So I think that plays a big part of it too. I always tell my students, find a community theater in your area if you want experience, because no experience is going to teach you more than a live audience that's reacting to you in real time and you go, oh. And then after a while you start getting this instinct for what moves people, you know? And you don't have to think, and you shouldn't have to think about it. But you will have this instinctive knowledge of how to please people. What do you have? Come up here. What are you doing? Stop bogarting the snacks. What my favorite snack is? Yes. My homemade lemonade that I make at home. Oh. With real lemons. And my wife, I started putting blueberries in it. You know, I call it my own bubble tea. And my wife started freezing blueberries for me so that I could just pop them in, and they're like little ice cubes of blueberries. Oh, wow. That's my favorite snack. What about spice cake? Oh, that's my favorite cake, yeah, spice cake. I get, once a year, my wife will make me spice cake on my birthday. And not carrot cake. Carrot cake is spice cake that's been ruined by vegetables. I love spice cake. Well, then my grandpa wouldn't be happy. Yeah. That's his favorite cake is carrot. Oh, yeah? Any other questions?
I guess not at the moment.
Well, come on up here. You've asked enough questions.
Oh,
We'll just have a whole crew up here before we're done. Play? A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Iconic. I love that.
I was about 50 pounds ago, and I played Puck, basically just wearing a loincloth and some vines, and I just had a blast with that character. I've always wanted to play Puck, and at the audition, I never say this, but they always say, is there a character you won't play, you know? And most people say, no, I'll play anything, right? And I wrote, I will only play Puck. Because I've been in this before. I played Demetrius in high school, but I really want to play Puck. And then they said, Sonny, you said you'll only play Puck, is that right? I said, I'm sorry. I mean, if you don't want to cast me, that's fine. But I just want to play Puck sometime, right? And they went with me. Then it was a blast. And it was a small community theater, and things kept going wrong. And the more things that went wrong, the more joy I had. Like at one point, I jumped across the stage, off stage, and I hit the curtain, and the whole curtain fell down. So I just wrapped it around me like a cape and marched out into the middle, you know. And then the crew's freaking out. You see the crew back there, they're pulling the cape, and I'm going, chasing after it and everything. And then I tripped over this character who's lying on the ground, which is I was supposed to do. But after the audience calmed down a little bit, I said, look at what thou made me do. And it was wonderful. And one time we had a guy not show up. He ended up getting drunk with his dad in the afternoon. It was the guy who played Demetrius, actually. So the director had to put on his costume and walk around with a script. And so while he was asleep, because Puck puts him to sleep, I went over to him and I grabbed the script out of his hand and changed the page and gave it back to him. So when he woke up, he's like this. And he's looked like this at me. And I'm like, ah. So that was my favorite. And then it inspired me a lot. I actually wrote a comic book series called We Shadows, which is about the characters from Midsummer Night's Dream and what they're doing today. There's this monologue that he has, says, if we shadows have offended, think but this and all is mended, that you have been slumbered here while these visions did appear, right? Anyway, he calls himself and the other fairies We Shadows. And I thought that's a badass name for fairies. So that was the name of the series, We Shadows. And it was published by Tokyo Pop. And then Tokyo Pop went under, but I had the rights back, so I published it myself. If you go to WeShadows.com, you can read the whole thing. There's like several graphic novels in there. Who should we go to now? Well, Krillin wants to ask a question, so Krillin can come up here, right? Come on up here, Krillin.
Do you prefer filming at home, or do you prefer going in a studio?
Going in the studio. Because coming from the theater, I feed off of live audience. And even if it's just a director and an engineer, that's enough for me. You know, hearing their laughter and everything feeds me. A lot of times actors don't like it when tours come in, you know. I'm like, oh, bring them in. This is going to be fun. Yeah. Yeah, definitely not at home. That's sad. Well, I said my dad did all these impressions and everything. My mother, she would draw. We'd be watching cartoons and she would just be sketching and she'd go, look, and it's a picture of Yogi Bear. And I was like, wow. And when I was 6, I was looking for something to do, and she said, here, take this character from the newspaper. It was Beetle Bailey's dog, and I want you to go to your room and I want you to draw a picture of it. And I don't want you to come out of your room until your picture looks just like that picture. And I was like, oh, so it's like a puzzle. So I looked at it, and I realized if I look at it and I hold the pencil, I could basically sort of trace what I'm looking at over here, right? And I gave it back to her, and she thought I traced it, and she said, I'll prove it to you, you traced it. And she tried to line them up, and they didn't line up. And she was like, oh my God, you really drew this, right? So then she encouraged me to draw more, and she said, draw this, draw this, draw this. So most of my career is just because I liked entertaining my parents when I was a kid. Oh, it's got to be when he had the money stolen and, you know, and he was just crying and humiliated and everything. That was the saddest moment, I think. It didn't get any sadder than that for him. Because after you go through something like that, what can hurt you? You know? That was his darkest moment. What was your happiest moment? Probably when he defeated, what's her name, with the negative personality? Yes. That was amazing. I just naturally have a negative personality. Vegeta. Yeah. I would never want to play him. I think Chris Sabat's perfect, but I love that character. I love his story arc, and I love any redemption story. That's why I like playing Bardock. But Vegeta has a redemption story, but he's still a jerk. You know, he still holds on to it. You know, he's a kind of a better guy. You know, for it, but at the same time, he still maintains that jerky attitude. I love him.
It's her favorite, so good answer.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you guys for coming.